Very big day, ladies and gentlemen. A verdict is imminent. The jury is deliberating as we speak on this very important trial. This trial that many would say never should have happened in the first place because they still can't seem to define what the crime is. Welcome to the program. I am Trish Regan. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you share. It's really important right now. Also, hit that bell so you know when I am live here every single day. This is really something. So the jury is in deliberations right now, and it's not clear how long this is going to take. I mean, in my estimation, it should be quick. In my estimation, they should acquit him. There is nothing there. After all, an NDA is perfectly legal, and thus I'm not entirely sure why we're even here in the first place, other than, well, you know, right? They want to make sure that they do everything that they can to debilitate him and his campaign. It's not working, of course, it's not working, but this is their chosen path. What are you going to do when you got a guy who can barely keep his eyes open, let alone help our economy? That would be Joe Biden, of course. Let's go to Donald Trump, who spoke just moments ago outside the courthouse. He didn't do his usual thing earlier in the morning, but he came out and he spoke. And this is kind of interesting to see. I think he's, dare I say, a little bit nervous. I mean, he shouldn't be. But what do you think? I mean, when you've got a city like New York City and you got a judge like you've got in this particular case, I think he has every right to be very nervous. And he's basically saying, look, this shouldn't have happened, but here we are. Like, crazier things have happened, right? So this might actually wind up going to appeal. Can you imagine if this jury actually puts the former president of the United States in prison? I mean, think about that. This is pretty extraordinary. This is pretty extreme. These are crazy times. We are together on the front lines of history, everyone. Let's go to Donald Trump outside the courthouse moments ago.
Say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job, and it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace, and I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do.
You know, that's actually the most sort of defeatist I've heard him sound thus far. I think it could actually go in its favor, but, you know, hey, look, I'm optimistic at my core. I like to believe in the American people. I like to believe that you couldn't have 12 people that would actually say there's no reasonable doubt here. And that's really the standard, right? If one person is saying, gee, I don't know, I don't think, then you can't actually convict him of this. But there are a lot of things at play. A lot of things at play, and politics is the primary thing, shall we be very clear. I mean, why do you think this all came about in the first place? Why did the Fannie Willis thing come about? Why did the Letitia James thing come about, where she's actually going to dictate what she thinks Mar-a-Lago's worth? And boy, you know, she needed to go back and take some math classes, because 18 million, I'll tell you, lady, I'd buy it for 18 million. You're way off. Way, way off. And yet she was going to have him pay a fine of $500 million, $500 million in that case. That's what the judge was ordering. I mean, this is scary stuff, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually really, really alarming. So does he get off? I hope he does. I hope he's acquitted. I think it's the right thing for society, obviously, but it may actually wind up going to appeal, which means the judge could throw him behind bars. Imagine that. And then he's running for the presidency of the United States from behind bars. When I say banana republic, I'm not kidding. This is full-on banana republic kind of stuff. And it's wrong. It shouldn't be happening, but it's where we are right now. It's where we are because Donald Trump dared to get into the mix and dared to shake things up and dared to call out their you-know-what. And apparently those are things you just can't do. And they want to win no matter what. Remember everything that we went through. Remember Jimmy Carter, the former president of the United States, actually saying that he wasn't a real president. Trying to say it was a sham election because the Russians stole it. There was interference from the Russians. That's the only reason why Donald Trump won. Think about that. What a horrendous, horrible thing to say. And then Hillary Clinton doubling down on that, and it was Russia, 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 and we had an entire investigation. Turned out, nope, it wasn't Russia. You know, you can only burn the American people so many times. They start to get wise to this stuff. So as he sits there in court praying for a miracle, Americans are watching and listening, and they're frightened by this display, as they should be. The bias of the judge very much at issue. You know, of course, by now that the judge's daughter actually has a company, a social media company, by which she makes her living raising money for Democrats, including Adam Schiff. She makes her money off of this stuff. She makes her money off of this stuff, and this is something that Donald Trump has taken issue with time and time again. In fact, we saw him on social media just this morning putting this out. I was going to say he tweeted, but I guess I should say he truthed this out. Quote, "I never knew how small..." Oh, this is different. Sorry. We're going to get to this. Thank you, Drew. Drew's throwing this up for me. He's talking about Trump derangement syndrome, which clearly all of these people have. We're going to talk about Robert De Niro because he's responding to some of the comments from Robert De Niro. But one of the other things that he was putting out this morning, actually, on Truth Social, was a series of tweets or truths about how messed up all of this is. All of this is, in fact, because you know, it shouldn't be happening. Let me share this with you. Kangaroo Court, a corrupt and conflicted judge, reliance on counsel, advice of counsel not allowed by Merchan of First. His rulings on a case that should, according to all legal scholars and experts, never have been brought, have made this a Biden-pushed witch hunt. There was no crime, he writes, except for the bum that got caught stealing from me. In God we trust. Again, putting his faith in God. The bum he was referring to that got caught stealing from him would be none other than the star witness and the whole thing. That's Michael Cohen, who's lied and lied and lied again. And then it came out right there in the courtroom that, what do you know? He stole from the Trump organizations tens of thousands of dollars because he didn't feel like his bonus was strong enough. I mean, wow. Like, you can't make this up. And yet here we are, and they're going after Trump. So he's clearly super frustrated. And I think, judging by what we heard out of the president earlier, the sound that I just played for you, I think he's kind of worried. And that's a sad place for us to be. A very sad place. If he's worried, we should all be worried. Really and truly. He should be acquitted, but we shall see. I'll tell you this. You know what? People are worried about this judge. They're worried about just exactly how biased he is. Judge Merchan, he's the judge in this case, of course, ladies and gentlemen. He is the guy presiding over all of this. He is the guy that's telling the jury their instructions. He is the guy that is going to decide the punishment, should there be one, if Donald Trump were to be found guilty. And Judge Merchan, let's just say, is not exactly squeaky clean. You see, he has a daughter, which is fine. You know, he has a daughter. We're happy he has a daughter. His daughter is entitled to be in politics and earn her own living. Fine. But it gets a little tricky, you see, when you are the judge presiding over the cases that your daughter's living is tied to. Right? Like, at that point, you just say, you know, maybe I recuse myself from this one because it just doesn't look good. And if it doesn't look good, it probably isn't good. Well, no, not Judge Merchan. He decided to stick with it. His daughter, according to the New York Post, has raised some $93 million off of this case and other cases against Donald Trump. She works for the likes of Adam Schiff, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. So you start to see how people connect the dots and say, well, why is Judge Merchan overseeing this? It's a logical question to have. And I'm surprised that what we just saw happen today had not happened earlier. Elise Stefanik coming out, filing a misconduct complaint today, moments ago, saying that this is a concern of hers, that this Judge Merchan is overseeing all of these cases. I mean, all of them, right? Every single Trump case you got right now, Judge, or at least 3 of them, Judge Merchan is in charge of. Like, how does that happen? That's just luck of the draw. I mean, they flip a coin and suddenly Judge Merchan gets it and gets it and gets it again. So she filed this with the New York State Unified Court System, calling for an investigation into Judge Juan Merchan in order, quote, to determine whether the required random selection process was in fact followed. Because it doesn't feel very random now, does it? Not when you see he's presiding over all of these things. Case in point, according to her letter, she writes, Acting Justice Merchan also presided over the criminal trial against the Trump Organization and will be presiding over the criminal trial of Steve Bannon, a senior advisor in President Trump's White House and a prominent advocate for President Trump. Stefanik also wrote that there were at least 24 sitting justices available to oversee the cases, but nope, it was Merchan that was selected for all three cases related to Trump, which just seems kind of weird, right? He's got the Alvin Bragg case. He's got a Democrat, you know, he is a Democrat donor. That's another point that she brings up. So there's a total of 3, actually, that he's sitting on. So her point is, you know what, if it's totally random, then why is he on all of these? And I think that's a real question. For what it's worth, he did donate to the Democrats $15 for Biden for president back in July of 2020, and then $10 in contributions to the Progressive Turnout Project and Stop Republicans. This is according to the Federal Election Commission. So why, again, would you have such a biased judge in charge unless there's a method to the madness, shall we say? It's something that J.D. Vance, a potential VP contender, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, just addressed on Fox News. I want you to hear this clip.
But we've got to be honest about how biased this thing has been from the beginning. The admission of evidence that is bad for Donald Trump, the refusal to allow evidence that's good for Donald Trump. I think you've heard it from many sources, Democrat and Republican, that this judge has committed a lot of reversible error. So how can we have faith in the prosecution, in the presiding judge, when the guy is screwing up left and right in a way that only hurts Donald Trump? So I do have some faith in the jury. I hope that they do the right thing. But that doesn't change my view that the judge has really mishandled this case, and so is the prosecution team.
And thus, it's important we ask these questions right now. In other words, Alvin Bragg, he didn't want to bring this case in the beginning. And then he did. He was reelected and he did. Why? Because there's pressure. There's pressure of some sort. You know it, I know it. And you've got to ask the question that Elise Stefanik, another potential VP candidate, is asking right now, which is, how is it that this guy, this Judge Merchan, who has his own political biases that are quite clear, after all, he made donations related to them, and ladies and gentlemen, has a daughter that, yes, stands to profit. It just makes sense, right? Like, you're like, okay, let's have a little Chinese wall in our family. You do your thing, I'll do mine. He doesn't need or want his daughter to sacrifice her career. Therefore, he could very easily have exited this one, but no, he didn't. And he got really mad at something else yesterday, which really ticked me off, because at some point, the defense, Todd Blanche, mentioned to the jury the consequences of their actions, saying, you know, you don't want to be the ones to put this president behind bars. You'd be sending him to jail. And the judge had a total meltdown and said, you're not supposed to say that. How dare you say that? You know, you should know better. And I'm like, okay, granted, full disclosure, I'm not a legal scholar of any sort, but it seems to me that the jury ought to know the consequences of what they're doing. If they're deciding he's guilty of something, what does that mean? What does that carry with it? A jail sentence? You're going to send the former president to jail because there are an alleged 34 accounting issues? Because he tried to protect his wife and family and possibly his campaign? And by the way, that really shouldn't be illegal with an NDA agreement. I mean, in fact, this is one of the issues that has come up. The FEC, Federal Elections Commission, has not gone after him for these charges because guess what? Turns out NDAs happen all the time and they're perfectly legal. Can you argue that that's actually trying to motivate or push forward one candidate over another? Well, isn't that what every election is about? So they don't have any there. It's not really clear what the heck they're trying to decide, as they don't really have a defined crime. And it turns out the only liar is their star witness, Michael Cohen. I mean, this is like Keystone Cops, I'll tell you. Just pathetic, pathetic, pathetic stuff. And yet here we are. And clearly the former president is a little bit nervous. And you know what? It shouldn't be like this. They wonder why some young Black Americans right now are identifying more with Trump than they are with Joe Biden. I actually think some of this court stuff has something to do with it. I really do. I want to get to that because the current, I should say. He should be the former because you know what? I would fire this guy in 2 seconds if he were my comm chief. This is the guy that's running communications for Joe Biden, a guy named Michael Tyler. And he's trying to actually blame, this is great, wait for it, the media for the reason why young Black Americans are not coming out in droves for Joe Biden, but instead are actually saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Yeah, his name is Michael Tyler, and he went on to CNN, and the CNN anchor asked him, how could this be happening? We're looking at these numbers, and this analysis is pretty startling. After all, Democrats have historically had this group, and yet you guys don't. Why? And listen to his two reasons, the first being the media, the second we'll get to.
My colleague Harry Yenton had a recent analysis on how Trump is gaining ground with Black voters. From his analysis, that Trump has doubled his support among Black voters from this point 4 years ago, in part because he's polling in a quarter of Black voters under 50 in polling analysis. Why is that?
Well, listen, we know right now that we're operating in an incredibly fractured and fragmented media environment, and you still have a lot of young voters in particular who have not yet tuned in to the presidential election. And so that's why this campaign is relentlessly focused on reaching voters where they are right now, not waiting until September or October. Some campaigns have done in the past to reach out to Black voters, young Black voters in particular, but using every tool at our disposal right now to do so.
Really? That's what you're doing? Because you know what? If that's what you're doing, you're not doing a very good job. It is Donald Trump who's reaching out to Black voters. In fact, it is Donald Trump that was up in the Bronx just the other day, last week. It was unbelievable. Thousands of people showing up for Donald Trump in the Bronx. And he's appealing to a very diverse crowd there. And one of the guys that was interviewed, I want to show you this, on Real America's Voice, I think, he's making the point, his name is Lou, that it's great because this is actually something that neither side has ever done. No Republican nor Democrat has really tried to court these voters the way Donald Trump is courting them. So, Michael Tyler, the communications guy from Biden, before you blame the media, which we know you have in your back pocket, so don't even go there. That's a non-starter. And before you say, well, we're appealing to everyone, everywhere, just remember what you're up against, buddy. Let's go to Lou.
What's your name, man?
Lou Valentino. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Nice hat, nice shirt.
Where's the camera?
Right there.
How y'all doing, man? It's good to see y'all.
That's what you want to do. You just wanted to smile in front of the camera like that.
I love that. I love them. They know I love them.
So your thoughts about this whole thing?
My thoughts are that the pressure is on. If you could see, I don't know, the line to get in here right now, it's like an hour plus long. And there's a lot of people coming out here. And it looks like, it just looks so diverse. It looks amazing. It looks beautiful. It's just defeating every narrative there is. And Democrats are about to have a hard time in November because now New Yorkers are probably going to wake up and start asking, who are the politicians representing me? And I think this is not about Trump. This is about the strategy of Trump coming here, putting pressure on them. And Democrats, they've been getting our vote for so long, man, for so long, for years, decades. What has changed? Poverty, not that many jobs out here. It's a struggle, so I'd like to see Republicans step it up, invest in the RNC here, start reaching out, making a difference. There is many ways and many organizations that do not get the recognition out here to stop gang violence, to support those. But I just don't see Republicans here, but I definitely don't see Democrats doing anything. So I think Trump coming here, that's why he's an anomaly.
Yeah, I just don't see Biden being able to pull that off. By the way, forgive me, that was Right Side Broadcasting Network. That was not Real America's Voice. Anyway, interviewing this guy, Lou, who's making a really, really important point. And so as much as Michael Tyler, the communications director for Biden, wants to tell us, oh, we're going here, there, and everywhere. No, you're not, buddy. Like your guy, your candidate can't even go anywhere. Let's be honest, right? I mean, Jill Biden kind of sort of admitted that on The View today. It was actually really funny. Jill Biden, of all days, goes on that lovely television program that I know you cannot stand to watch, nor can I, but sometimes I watch it for you so that I can play you some of these clips. Just so you know, you get all sides. You want to be totally in the loop. Jill Biden, Dr. Jill, as they call her, goes on to The View, and she tries to explain why her husband's not doing that well. She kind of sounds a little bit like Michael Tyler here. It sounds really desperate, and I think we all know what's really going on. But let's give it a play. Drew, let's listen to Dr. Jill Biden trying to plead her husband's case there on The View today.
Dr. Biden, I've raised alarm bells among other Republicans about the danger of a second Donald Trump term, and I'm genuinely fearful for what that could look like. But consistently, we're seeing poll after poll that are showing Trump beating your husband outside of the margin of error, when in fact last time in 2020, Joe Biden was beating him in nearly every poll. How do you turn those numbers around with 5 months out, and are you fearful of what a second Trump term could look like?
Or a third, as Donald Trump says. So we are going to meet people where they are. We're going to go to college campuses. We're going to go to just every state that we can get into. I've been traveling every single day. Joe has been traveling as much as possible. And we're not going to take anything for granted.
Drew, 1 second. Did you guys catch that? She said, Joe's going everywhere as much as he can. I think we know. We know what she's about to say, right? As much as he can. For his state, ladies and gentlemen, for his state, kind of similar thing to what Michael was saying. We're going everywhere. We're going to meet people where they are. They're going to black colleges. I mean, the commencement speeches have been absolutely horrendous, so divisive, hugely wrong on every core level as a human being. Nothing uplifting about them. Nothing at all. And then as we listen to this, the rest of this, you're going to see she doubles down on that in a different way, right? It's not just the sort of racial undertones that she's going to promote here, but kind of this religious good versus evil, literally good versus evil. I mean, this is unbelievable to me. This is all you got? Seriously. This is because these people don't know a damn thing about policy. Here we go. Back to Jill.
We can get into. I've been traveling every single day. Joe has been traveling as much as possible. And we're not going to take anything for granted. And those polls are going to turn. I'm confident of it, because as time goes on and as people start to focus a little bit more about what's at stake and start to become educated on the issues and the differences between the two men, I believe that Americans are going to choose good over evil.
Yes.
Okay, cue the Time magazine cover, right, with the devil ears. Anyway, Dr. Jill Biden, she doesn't have anything. She's saying, okay, well, people, once they focus on the policy. No. You see, there is no policy. The only policy we got was to lead us into international conflicts, to completely sabotage our border with estimates of 8 to 11 million people, maybe that high actually coming this year. I mean, it's actually insane when she says, focus on the policy. What, so we can all get a tax hike? Because that's what he wants. So that we can suffer some more in our economy, so that we can have even more inflation, Dr. Jill? I don't think so. I don't think so. You see, the reason why the gentleman we were listening to earlier up there in the Bronx was saying it's so important that people come here and they talk to us, and this is the reason why Donald Trump is succeeding with young black voters, is because there's got to be an alternative. You can't just sit there and say everything is based on race, or everything is based on gender, or everything is based on your sexual preference. I'm sorry, that's not who we are. We are a meritocracy. This is why we are the success that we are. If we start thinking that way, and we're going to have a bunch of Debbie Downers around us, which she and her husband are, king and queen of, then we're never going to get ahead. I mean, you think of these populations, these pockets of America where the kids haven't had things like school choice. They haven't had the opportunities they deserve. And that's not because of color. That is because of bad politicians doing bad things, being on the take for themselves. Fannie Willis, great example, right? Remember she told us She was going to go down to Fulton County, Georgia and be DA, and she wasn't going to take up with her employees and spend all kinds of taxpayer dollars having a good time with her employees. And what did she do? She took up with somebody who actually might have been the boyfriend before he was even an employee. That's all going to come out, mind you. Donald Trump will succeed on that end as they unravel the financial mess surrounding, in my estimation, what's going on with Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. People in Georgia and Fulton County don't deserve a Fani Willis. They don't deserve these DAs that are so focused on going after Donald Trump that they're actually ignoring violent crime in cities. Think of what's happened to New York City. New York City is not the place that we once knew. I mean, and this isn't partisan, mind you, where's Rudy Giuliani and Mike Bloomberg? Yes, Mike Bloomberg, a Democrat when you need him. Tough on crime, both of them. I lived for years and years and years in New York City, and I know Giuliani well, and I worked for Mike Bloomberg. I was there as a Bloomberg television correspondent twice in my career, probably the only person to have ever worked there twice because he takes it personally when you leave. I'm not going back for a third time, don't worry. Anyway, Mike Bloomberg was very tough on crime. The police respected him. The police liked him. He continued the traditions of Rudy Giuliani. It wasn't until we got the socialist in there, de Blasio, that everything started to fall apart, and now it's continued falling apart, in part because you get DAs that are so politically motivated, like this one right here, going after Donald Trump, that is taking all of their energy, and they are not focusing on the things that they need to focus on. So yeah, Jill Biden, pretty desperate. Joe Biden, pretty desperate, and the Democrat Party, pretty desperate. I honestly don't know why they're running this guy. I'm shocked that they're running this guy. I mean, they're so desperate. They're doing crazy things now. So crazy that even MSNBC is saying, whoa, what's going on? Really? Is that really appropriate? I'm going to get to that in a second. But first of all, thank you for all the nice comments. It's a live show. So I see your commentary. And yes, this is bright silver dress. Bright silver dress. I think it's going to be a good day. I think it's going to be a good day. So this is kind of a cheery, celebratory thing. I think he will be. I hope. But you know what? You never know. So I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, but I am in a celebratory mood, and I appreciate all the nice compliments on the live chat there, guys. I want to give a plug for one of our sponsors here on the show, the great Balance of Nature. I take my vitamins every single day. They're fruits and veggies from Balance of Nature. I encourage you to go look at this company. Take a look at the fruits and veggies. Those are mine that I like. 1-800-246-8751 if you want to call them, or go to their website, balanceofnature.com. I do take the fruits and veggies. And you know what? Look, as a kid, I always took my vitamins, right? My mom would give me my breakfast and I'd get my Flintstone vitamins, and that was that. As an adult, it's harder. And, I'm busy giving my kids their vitamins, but I sometimes forget about myself. And I actually feel more clear-headed, more alert, more on top of everything as a result of this stuff. I've been taking it for several months. I love it. Also, I'm not one to get a ton of vitamin D, so I really feel better about being able to make that up. I'm also not the best on eating my fruits and vegetables, so this comes in handy. 1-800-246-8751, discount code Trish for 35% off and free shipping. Go check them out. I'm going to put the link in the notes of the show as well. Balance of Nature. And yes, thank you for the kind compliments. All right, I told you, this guy, Michael Taylor. Okay, we got to get to know his name, right? Michael Taylor is the communications director for the Biden campaign. And honestly, if it were me, I would just fire the guy, because I think he's terrible at his job. I think they're terrible communicators. It's in part that they got a lousy candidate who doesn't have any policy ideas to back him up. But this was kind of a dumb move. Did you see him just yesterday down outside the courthouse with more Biden cronies? He dragged Robert De Niro into this thing, and they set up some kind of alternate little group there for the media. It was just weird, really, really weird and really, really unbecoming. This is Michael Taylor trying to rev everybody up. Nobody's listening other than the media. He sort of admitted that. Watch.
First of all, let me say this first and foremost. We're not here today because of what's going on over there. We're here today because you all are here. And so we are glad that you're all here this morning. We're here primarily because of the threat that Donald Trump poses to the United States of America and to our democracy.
Yeah, That's his line, and he's sticking to it. They don't have any policy. They don't have anything else other than good versus evil. Oh, he's going to, remember that he's going to put you back in chains comment? My gosh. I mean, this is really, really, really bad. And so they show up because you know what? They can't get any media attention on their own. Think about that, guys. They can't get any attention for Joe Biden. I showed you a clip the other day of Joe Biden going through the streets of Atlanta, and there was like 2 people on the sidewalk. Now, granted, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just think that, okay, there was not a crowd there, but when Trump goes through with his motorcade, like there's tons of people out there. So I don't know. I think it's kind of ridiculous that the head of the communications operation for the president of the United States for his reelection campaign has to traipse down to the courthouse in order to actually reach the media. I mean, he should have them all on speed dial, of course. But I don't think Joe or Michael Taylor are that interesting. And by the way, all they have is the same message over and over and over and over again. So they decided rather than have us say it, we're going to bring in a Hollywood actor who despises Trump. And this backfired. It's backfired spectacularly. I mean, just the fact that they did this, when MSNBC is telling you, I don't think it's a good move. Hey, you know what, Mr. Communications Director? I might want to listen. Let's go to Mika, telling him this was just off. She's right.
I guess I have to ask you why you decided to speak there and to have the campaign show up at the courthouse. I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me at all.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. We showed up there because the news media has been incessantly posted up there day in and day out for weeks. And so, as we said last week, we are going to use the next month to talk about the upcoming presidential debate in Atlanta and the things that Donald Trump is going to have to answer for. First and foremost, he's going to answer for the continued threat that he poses to our democracy, his continued embrace of political violence. And so that's what Robert De Niro and officers for known and done were speaking to down in Manhattan yesterday. They were speaking to the fact that Donald Trump still regularly embraces political violence, is calling for a bloodbath if he loses this election, and is pledging to rule as a dictator on day one. And so given that the news media is
I get everything that you're saying, Michael. Michael, I get everything you're saying, and I agree with the officers who showed up and with Robert De Niro, but I'm just curious about the location. Last week, when the members of Congress showed up to support Donald Trump, I called it unbecoming of the office. They're serving the people of their district, American citizens. They're not supposed to politicize a court proceeding. And I feel the same way about the campaign. Is there any concern about the campaign getting a little bit too close to these court proceedings, and could that backfire? Any concerns? Looking back, was it a good decision?
No, there's no concern. This campaign is not speaking about the substance of the trial in any way, shape, or form. What we are talking about, what we talked about yesterday, and what we'll continue to talk about, is the unique threat that Donald Trump poses to our democracy. And so a lot of the coverage as of late has been focused on the stakes for him, but we're making sure that the American people understand the stakes for them.
It's all they got, right? They can't tell us what they're going to do to actually lower inflation. They can't tell us how they're going to keep us safe. They can't tell us how they're going to reinforce our border. They can't tell us anything. They can only say he's a threat. But Americans are like, wait a second, wasn't he president for 4 years? And we emerged okay. I mean, gas prices were lower. My grocery bill was lower. I had more security in my life. So they're going to keep going with this narrative, and they're doing it in really weird ways. So weird that even Mika Brzezinski has to point that out to the guy. It wasn't really becoming. She's absolutely right. And you know what? This is a chorus that's going on right now over at MSNBC. I mean, very rarely do I ever agree with them on anything. But I want you to see Donnie Deutsch, who used to run an ad agency. I don't know what happened to that. And was a commentator on CNBC. He had a show briefly. I used to work with him there. He's like a regular guest on this Morning Joe thing. And he goes on and he's also saying, like, it's not good. Like, it's not good. And if I were running that communications team, I would make sure we stayed far away from Robert De Niro and celebs in general, because you know what you risk? You risk a deplorables moment, a la Hillary Clinton. Let's take a look at Donnie calling out De Niro for his antics. Watch.
And Donnie, this is, of course, tabloid fodder here in New York City. Here's the New York Daily News. You talking to me. New York Post taking a different tact, raging BS. What's your sense, though, Robert De Niro aside? You can talk about that if you want, if you think that worked. But also, as we await here, jury instructions, jury deliberation, and a verdict perhaps by the end of this week, of what all this is going to amount to in the
first
campaign.
of all, on the De Niro thing, I'm going to take the other side of Molly. I just would challenge the Biden campaign in general, step away from celebrities. I don't think it helps. I think it kind of almost, in a weird way, sometimes backfires. Oh, those liberal Hollywood elites, and they're well-intentioned, and Robert De Niro is well-intentioned, but I think staying away from the courthouse would have been the best thing. As far as the trial, I just don't think it's going to matter that much. I'm waiting for it to end, to be honest with you. I want Trump back on the campaign trail. I actually think if he's convicted, helps a little bit on the margins, tiny bit. I think if he's found not guilty, I think that's more of a benefit for him than if he's found guilty for the other side. I just do. I want it over. I just think, I don't think the country cares about it. I think the country cares about inflation. They care about abortion. They care about democracy. They care about the war in Gaza. I just think we're talking to ourselves a lot here. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been brought. I want it over.
Yeah. And it means you don't need clowns like this out there outside the courthouse trying to orchestrate some kind of new circus act. It's like the latest scene in the circus act. Let's go to, I think we got a couple of clips of De Niro. Did you guys see this? I mean, this is crazy. And so, of course, the newspapers, the headlines, as you saw, they're all talking about it. Let's go to clip 1 of De Niro.
On elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will
you see, this is their
never
talking point.
leave. What does that mean? Is that the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm dictator for life?
Now he's getting frustrated because of the honking.
I hope this new ad campaign reaches outside the bubble to remind supporters of what a danger he is to our lives. This is not a threat. This is a reality. And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedoms...
Okay. And then I think we have another clip because he kind of gets into it. There's a heckler there, sort of a heckler, a very polite heckler, saying, well, I don't agree with you, and I don't agree with what the officers that you're surrounded with testified. And whoa, okay, I'm surprised that we didn't have fisticuffs there because De Niro, the little guy that he is, you don't want to mess with him, right? Look at this. Look at this exchange. It's kind of funny and kind of pathetic.
For Trump.
They lied under oath.
They lied under oath. Who lied under oath? What are you telling me?
Those two traitors behind you.
Excuse me?
Those two traitors behind you.
They lied under oath?
That's right.
What are you saying?
They're traitors.
They're traitors. I don't know. I don't even know how to deal with you, my friend. I don't even know how to deal with you.
Yeah. So, uncomfortable moment. Donald Trump responded. He sent this out on Truth Social. We get a little commentary from him. He said, I never knew how small, both mentally and physically, wacko former actor Robert De Niro was. Today, De Niro, who suffers from an incurable case of Trump derangement syndrome, commonly known in the medical community as TDA. I mean, he's funny, right? He's funny. It's a joke, of course. Was met outside the courthouse with a force far greater than the radical left, MAGA. Robert, whose movies, artistry, and brand have gone way down in value since he entered the political arena at the request of crooked Joe Biden, looked so pathetic and sad out there. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? I mean, it's very hard to watch a Robert De Niro movie. We were all talking about this just yesterday. I liked that Meet the Fockers. I thought it was cute. And I can't watch it now. And it's not because it's like grainy film or anything. It's because it's him. And it's just hard to look at him in the same way, knowing how aggressive he is on the political front. It's really just kind of wrong. You know, I think at some point maybe just the actors should just stay actors, right? Stay over there. Stay out of the politics. It's really not appropriate. Kind of like, you know, news anchors used to be at one point in time. I mean, look, I'll be the first to tell you, what you see is what you get. You know, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I try to make sure you always hear all sides, but you will know my opinion. And that's the freedom we have here. It's the freedom we have in this streaming capability where not everything is scripted, not everything has to be edited, etc. You just get sort of the raw Trish. Well, someone got the raw Joy Reid. Were we able to bleep out? Sure, you bleeped out the bad language, right? Joy Reid is an MSNBC anchor who has a serious case of TDS, if you ask me. But this is how she makes her living, of course, and she's trying to get ratings all the time, and she hates Trump, and she doubles down on it, and you know she's trying to get Rachel Maddow's crown, effectively, because Rachel Maddow had that locked up. Rachel Maddow, to her credit, was actually very good at her conspiracy theories. I mean, she really was. She would weave together a crazy conspiratorial story, but, you know, she kind of was talented at it. Not that it's right, but she could do it, and she did it well. Joy Reid, unfortunately, cannot. She doesn't have that kind of talent. So she goes back to, I hate Trump, I hate Trump, I hate Trump, but I'm going to wear his haircut. And this is what came up with the reporter. This one is from Real America's Voice. And he kind of tried to have some fun with her. And she got angry. And then got even angrier. Come on, lady. Here we go. Joy Reid.
Joy, just wondering, do you think people with Trump derangement syndrome know they have it?
You're an idiot.
And second question, did you steal Trump's haircut? Did you steal yours? Cultural appropriation haircut right there.
So there was an F-bomb in there, and she basically said you're an idiot after having said he was an idiot. I mean, she could have said you're an idiot and kind of laughed and walked on, but no, she had to have the language. And that just tells me like there's anger there. There's real anger there. That's what motivates her. I would not have expected that of Rachel Maddow. She might have said, oh, you're acting like an idiot or da-da-da, but she wouldn't have, the vitriol would not have been there in such a deliberate, aggressive way. And so that troubles me. It troubles me about sort of the state of media in general, and you know that. It's one of the reasons why we're over here, and it's nice to be over here, right? Because we can have a very honest conversation, but I think that we just kind of have to be real and still respect each other as people. And the truth is, the left does not respect you. They don't respect you as a person. They assume you're an idiot. And not just an idiot, idiot. That's kind of an ideology that Joy Reid made very clear, and I think is shared by so many members of the liberal media right now. And all those idiots, idiots, they're coming back with a vengeance. Already, all the poll numbers you look at, one after another, increasingly for Donald Trump. Because you know what? People are tired of it. They actually do want policy. They voted for personality before because you told us he was a bad guy, right? Oh, bad, good versus evil, etc. Americans fell for that. And they're like, what happened? Our economy's not doing really well. Our border's all messed up, and look at the international situation. So that didn't turn out so well. You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame, vice versa. You know where I'm going with it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And so Americans are like, I'm not going to fall for that. You can tell me I'm a bad person. You can tell me you don't respect me because of how I'm going to vote, and yet I'm going to vote that way anyway, and I'm kind of enjoying being able to vote the way I want. This is why it could be really quite something in November, for sure. Look, we need to get the right policy in place. You know that, I know that, everybody knows that. And all of this stuff that he's done is just all wrong. Now he's starting to send taxes even higher. Should he get another term? This is not good for America, ladies and gentlemen. People need to be able to keep what they earn. We need to be creative about healthcare. We need to be creative about dealing with this record inflation, which has turned our economy into a stagflationary event. We're barely growing enough to service our debt. This is not sustainable. It's one of the reasons why I'm proud to have partnered with AmericansForProsperity.org, AmericansForProsperity.org, where they care about policy. I mean, I'm a complete dork when it comes to this stuff. I literally read every tax policy I can get my hands on from politicians. I do. And I remember in 2016 being like, wow, Trump's is the best. Like, hands down the best. Ted Cruz's looked good on the surface, but he had what's known as a VAT tax in there, a hidden tax. So that was not good. But I looked at Trump's and I thought, this makes sense. And he's going to onshore all this capital that's overseas. You know what it helped us? It helped us to the point where we had median incomes growing the most they had grown in some 50 years up until March 2020. Well, people want to go back to that. Good news today, new polls showing that Congress and the Oval Office are very much within striking distance. So this is the team that's looking at the policy that's going to help us all over the country right now. AmericansForProsperity.org. Go check them out. Sign up. Get their emails. You'll learn a lot. And make sure you watch some of their interviews with me because it's really good stuff. Meaty stuff. Meaty stuff. Speaking of having the right policy, speaking of having the right people, we need the right people in the White House. We need people that understand business. We need people that understand economics and markets and all of these things that have a direct effect on us, including our national security. So how do you like this? There's talk now of Elon Musk making the cut. Elon Musk, this exclusive story in the Wall Street Journal, I want to share the headline with you, coming out today, just moments ago, that there's a growing alliance there, and it's expected that he would have an advisory role in the president's White House, assuming Donald Trump wins. I mean, that's really kind of cool, actually, because you know what? Say what you want about Elon. He's a smart guy who believes in our freedom of speech. So much so that it's one of the reasons why he bought Twitter. For an insane amount of money, by the way. I was kind of surprised at the valuation. I told you the deal would go through, though. And it did. And he's encountering all kinds of other problems because in this free speech environment where you should be able to say what you think, you can so easily get shot down for it, lose advertisers, etc. It's why he's so angry at Disney. But let's go back to one of the reasons why he bought it in the first place. I want to share an excerpt with you of an old Fox interview with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson sat down with Elon Musk, and what he said about the Fed's access to Twitter was pretty startling to everyone, certainly me. Not surprising, but indeed startling. Watch.
The degree to which various government agencies had effectively had full access to everything that was going on Twitter blew my mind. I was not aware of that.
Would that include people's DMs?
Yes.
DMs, what that means is direct messages. So if I direct message you on Twitter and you respond back, it means the government could see it. Apparently the State Department was all over that stuff. And so this is some of the information that's come out with the Twitter files, et cetera. Remember Matt Taibbi, the reporter, was highly intimidated by the IRS. He had IRS agents show up on his doorstep the day he had gotten his hands on the Twitter files, the day he was supposed to testify before Congress. I mean, all of this is happening, by the way, under Joe Biden's administration. All of it is extremely alarming. So I, for one, would love to see someone like Elon Musk who's thinking intelligently about AI, how we preserve our freedoms in this new AI world. I mean, one of the funny things he said, and I don't have this quote with me right now, but he has said in the past about how history is usually written by the victors. That is, unless it's nowadays, where it gets written by the editors at Wikipedia who have nothing better to do than sit there and troll things and write history as they see fit. I get it, right? So how do we change that? How do we preserve our strength? How do we grow in this environment? I think Elon Musk would be a great addition to the Trump team. The other name I'm going to throw out there is a guy who knows a heck of a lot about finance. That would be Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He said something pretty compelling. Hear me out on this. Hear me out. At Davos, just a few months back, because he was making the point that you cannot just cancel half the population, which is what the Biden team is trying to do. It doesn't work that way. Take a look.
We've got this great hand, but when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. Now, if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting Trump?
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans. And
I agree.
It's done crazy.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Like, can we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. And I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Yeah, for sure. Because in other words, people don't like, half the country doesn't like being told, you're stupid. You're stupid because you actually think that Trump is onto something. When he is, for goodness sakes. I mean, he's talking about things that Biden just doesn't get. Trade agreements, for one. How taxes work, for two. I mean, the reality that you need a secure border, number three. I mean, this is not complicated. And yet, for some reason, with Joe Biden, he's not the brightest bulb. He never has been. Let's be very, very frank on that. Not a bright guy. Graduated bottom of his class in law school from Syracuse. Not a bright guy, but just a politician. So he's got these hot button issues. He's going to try and play them over and over and over again. Good versus evil. Oh, MAGA's bad, etc. No. Half the country actually believes that we need to think about ourselves and putting ourselves first in an America First agenda. Because you just can't keep doing what you're doing. I mean, consider on the economic front what's going on. We're just printing and printing and printing and printing. I mean, our debt load now, 34 trillion and counting. I know it gets you guys worked up, and it should get you worked up. Because what it's going to do is evaporate the value of your dollars. Your dollar is worth less today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago because of all the money printing. And it's one of the reasons why I really do encourage people to look at a diversified portfolio. It's one of the reasons I'm proud to have sponsored with American Heart for Gold. Wonderful, wonderful team. They're very, very well rated. It's just a great offer as well, which is one of the things that excites me, because I'm always looking out for you guys and want a deal. Anyway, I would encourage you to go to Trish Loves Gold. I can remember. You can remember that, even though I'm dressed in silver today. TrishLovesGold.com. And take a look at American Heart for Gold. Drew, if you can put that up, I'm actually going to give them the information as well, the text, which is 65532. You can text my name, Trish, to 65532, because you have an opportunity to get up to $15,000 in free silver with this company. TrishLovesGold.com, 844-495-1115. I'm going to put the link in the notes so that you have it there. Take a look. Diversification is really, really, really important. Speaking of markets, I want to get to the markets, and I also want to get to Lady Gaga, because Lady Gaga had a crazy thing that she just came out with that, if she happened to support Donald Trump, she'd be in huge trouble for, but nobody's actually talking about it when they should. Anyway, going to the markets right now, we've been looking at kind of a down day. Let's see how we've recovered, or if we've recovered at all. The market had been down as much as 300 points as we began this show here. So let me just get you some real-time data as we watch what's going on. Some concerns that, the economy could be stumbling. Yeah, the market's still off about 1% or so. So at 38,491, 10-year Treasury yield up at 4.6%. Treasuries looking more attractive, of course, in an environment where people are saying, well, wait a second, if I can get 4.6% in my Treasury bond, do I really want to be in equities? Here's what I'm going to say. Diversification. Again, diversification. And there's still a reason for you to be in equities, in stocks, that is. Just make sure you're in the right ones. If you want to know which ones are the right ones, my colleague over at 76 Research, a long time longtime friend named Rob Horton, superstar fund manager, who spent the last 20 some odd years picking stocks as a fund manager on Wall Street. Just an enormously great track record. I'm so proud to have partnered with him on this project. 76research.com. We actually have a promo that we are running right now, and I want to share. There we go, 20% off all your subscriptions if you use coupon code 76USA24. 76USA24. Go to 76research.com. Sign up for at least the free stuff, right? At least get the free stuff. You can get the 76 report, which has a lot of good ideas, some of which have done just incredibly, incredibly well. I'm so proud of that and so excited because I think we really timed that. Not that I believe in time in the market. Let me be very careful about that because I'm a big believer in buy and hold, but I want to make sure that you're buying in the right levels, right? So good stuff there for all of you. Go check out 76, you get it, right? 76research.com. Use the coupon code 76USA24. Look at those model portfolios. Model portfolios, we have 3 different ones. They're all with 10 to 15 different stocks, all to help you invest for yourself and your family for the long term. All right, I promised Lady Gaga, right? You know, I gotta tell you, if this were anybody that was conservative, do you know how much hot water they would be in? Do you remember, let's go back to those scary days of March 2020 and then the aftermath that followed, et cetera. You know, kids had to be out of school if they tested positive for coronavirus for 2 weeks. There were all these rules and regulations. You couldn't go to the office. You had to wear a mask for like another 2 weeks after that. I mean, all kinds of things. And yet it turns out some of the most celebrated entertainers by this administration, you know, they get the invites to the Met Gala and all that good stuff. Well, they didn't abide by the rules, right? No. Lady Gaga's one of them. She had a shocking mission here in an interview that she just did. I want to play this for you and we'll react.
Mind sharing something maybe you've never shared before about the creating of this project, the execution of this project, the gifting of this tour, something maybe you've never said out loud before that you'd be willing to share today?
I did 5 shows with COVID.
You ever be like, you better get it, friend?
You know, what? I shared it with everyone on my team, and I said I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable at work, and you don't have to perform, and you don't have to work that day, but I'm gonna do the show because I just didn't want to let all the fans down. And the way that I saw it also is that the fans were all putting themselves in harm's way every day coming to the show, so you know.
Somebody said that'll be your life.
During all my quick changes, I kept going, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, right? If the tables were turned, if that had been, say, Lee Greenwood, to help me, guys, you know, the country music singer who's God Bless the USA, if that had been him, do you know how furious the media would be? Do you know how angry they would be? Because you know what? You can't go against what Anthony Fauci and the CDC and everybody else wants. You're not allowed to. But yet, if you're Lady Gaga, apparently it's all fine. Now everybody just laughs about it and they cheer. I mean, think about that. They're cheering. I'm sorry, like what was that all about? All the scare tactics that they employed during that time. I mean, look, I maintain this. I said at the time, like, it was an overreaction. Take care of who you need to take care of, but don't shut down the entire country. Think of the people that we lost as a result, myself included. I mean, I have a family member that should have gone in for a kind of simple skincare for skin cancer check that didn't get that and passed away as a result. In other words, there were things that should have been done, could have been done, needed to be done, and yet everything in this moment of hysteria got shut down. And yet, as we were coming out of this and everybody was still freaked out, Lady Gaga could still go and do her concerts. That was okay. Walmart could stay open, but not your local hair salon or your local hardware store. Oddly, bars could be open, but kids couldn't go to school. I guess what I'm saying is you got to just be really mindful of all the politics and all of this stuff. You know what? Walmart has lobbyists. The teachers union has a lot of sway, but your local hairdresser, they don't have that kind of ability. So it's really kind of pathetic and disgusting how we mismanage that. I'm looking at you, Cuomo, right? With the nursing homes, allowing people that were infected into the nursing homes and yet locking everything else up. I mean, it was just unbelievable, the stupidity. And I realize it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I was concerned at the time, and I was rightly concerned at the time that they were going to politicize it as they did. And in doing so, have a lot of unintended consequences. That's one of the things they teach you in economics, to think about unintended consequences, and we certainly had some. We got some breaking news right now coming into us. If you have not been following this little story about the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, I'm about to get you up to speed because it has been a saga. It's very, very interesting. So, the conservative justice, Samuel Alito, apparently in the days after the J6 stuff, had a bit of a social altercation with a neighbor. Not him, actually, personally, not him at all. It was his wife. There were some people that lived in her neighborhood that were very liberal, and they didn't like her so much, and they said some bad things to her. And her response was to go outside and fly the American flag upside down. Because she's a hoot. Mrs. Alito, do not mess with her. So this was her thing. She did it all on her own. And nobody reported on it, not until now. Now they're reporting on it, which also, by the way, is interesting in and of itself. Think about that. Like, how does the media sit on the story for so long? According to the Washington Post, their own admission, they said, well, they didn't think it was important at the time. They didn't think it was important because it seemed like an individual squabble between these neighbors, between Mrs. Alito and her neighbor who had a difference of opinion. The reason apparently the upside down flag thing was significant because that was allegedly some kind of pro J6 thing. I mean, I had never heard that. I had never heard that. And so I asked around, and you know what? I know a lot of conservatives, like really deep-rooted conservatives, all over the country. Nobody had heard of this. And they're acting like, oh, everybody knew. It was a J. I'm like, nobody knew. I mean, I had never, ever heard of this until I just read it in the New York Times the other day. Who knew that upside down flag meant this? So I don't know if Mrs. Alito knew it or not, but what I can tell you is that upside down flags have been used in a time of distress before. So they signal distress, but according to the New York Times these days, it signaled something else entirely. Yet nobody chose to do the story. Nobody chose to do the story until now because you see Alito is going to be deciding on this Trump case and Jack Smith, et cetera, and they're worried about the numbers not being stacked in their favor. And, you know, they've gone after pretty much everyone they can. So now, Mr. Alito, Supreme Court Justice Alito is ripe for the picking. So they wanted him. Democrats were demanding. They sent a letter. You got to recuse yourself. You got to recuse yourself from Trump cases. And he just came out with a response. So this is interesting. I'm going to paraphrase. No effing way. He didn't say that. But he did say that he will not recuse from cases involving the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol breach or any cases involving former President Donald Trump. So the Democrats, including many top senators, are going to go kind of crazy. They're going to go kind of crazy. This is just coming in right now. He's like, nope, not happening. They said he must because he flew that upside down American flag outside his home. By the way, he has said that was Mrs. Alito's thing. She was in this dispute with the neighbor. It was kind of just a neighbor thing. And there had been some bad words apparently exchanged, and Mrs. Alito was like, I don't like this lady, and I'm going to fly my flag like this to tick her off. You know, it's kind of funny because they said it's perfectly fine that Judge Merchan can have a daughter that's making oodles of money, tons and tons and tons of money off of the Trump legal cases. That is her business. And it's somehow perfectly fine that Judge Merchan's daughter's living is tied to the outcome of this case. So it just seems like, once again, a huge double standard. I mean, this has nothing to do with money. It has something to do with a neighborly dispute, which even the Washington Post admitted way back when. So America's in a bad spot. They want to stack the court. That's where we're heading. They're already threatening, oh my gosh, if Donald Trump wins, then we're going to lose the court forever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on. It's why I need you to subscribe. I need you to stay committed. I need you to be here every day, and I need you to share the information. So do your part here. I just want to look at some of your comments because it's great to have you all here. I really mean that. I really mean that. We're going to get a lot of information coming forward in the next couple of days. We also get the Hunter Biden situation that's going on. Oh yeah, Hunter Biden. You haven't heard much about him lately, now have you? You're about to. You're about to, because by the way, there's a book that's coming out all about him and the relationship he had with the baby mama, the girlfriend. Yeah, this is what bugs me about this guy, Hunter Biden. I mean, a lot of things bug me. By the way, he's a public person, so just get over it. Hunter, at this point, that ship has sailed. It bothers me that he worked so hard to try and not take on his fatherly responsibility for that little girl. She is his own flesh and blood, his own DNA. And not only did he fight it so hard, but then he tried to get out of alimony payments. I mean, there's something really wrong with a guy like that. We know he's had drug problems. We know all about that, right? We know about the $83,000 a month from the Burisma energy company in Ukraine while his dad was running Ukraine policy in the Obama White House. So we know he has no problem with conflicts of interest. But this is kind of what he did after finding out that was his trying to get out of his payments for that child. That's pretty bad. And Biden, his father, is no better. Remember how many times he told us how many grandkids he had, and he always omitted that little girl? Yeah. I'm looking at your comments. Lisa Lewis, thank you for the Lee Greenwood shout out. That's exactly it. Great, great, great song. Diane, good to have you here. Hightower, welcome back. Michael Donald, good to see you again. Yeah, I didn't get to Jennifer Love Hewitt. Maybe we can save that for another day, but really good to have all of you here. Do please like the show, subscribe to the show, hit the bell. I will be back here with you tomorrow. I have a feeling this is going to be a very big week. Next week, equally as big as we watch Hunter Biden under a whole lot of pressure. I have a theory on this, though. I think that things could get really bad for Hunter Biden, and actually the Democrats may use this against Joe Biden because they can't run him. I mean, how do you run this guy? You can't. Michelle's still waiting in the wings. We're going to talk about that tomorrow as we await the verdict in this trial. I believe he should be acquitted. I believe this whole thing should go away. But you know what? Crazier stuff has happened. The fact that we're here in this moment in time tells you everything you need to know. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow.